Hello, everyone. Today I'm in conversation with an expat. Her name is Ashna Mehra. She's originally from India, did her bachelor's degree in civil engineering at Vellore Institute of Technology. Then she did her master's degree in structural engineering at Milan. So, Ashna, I'm very much thankful that you could able to join our conversation today, and I'm looking forward to know a lot more about you, your journey from India to Germany, and then also in Italy, where you are currently living. So, very much looking forward to it. Warm welcome, Ashna. Can you please share about yourself to the audience?
So, hello everyone. Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity actually to share and maybe encourage people that you can come and you can have opportunities abroad rather than, and of course, it's always better to keep exploring the world. So, it's one of the ways that I can convey this message to the people, the students, or the people back in India. Anyways, so just giving a little bit about my educational background and my professional background. So I am actually from Kanpur, Uttar Pradesh, but I did my bachelor's, as you mentioned, from VIT Vellore in the field of civil engineering. And I have graduated with a master's degree in structural engineering from Politecnico di Milano in April 2024. During my master's degree at Politecnico di Milano, I also had an opportunity to study for like 6 months as an Erasmus exchange student in RWTH Aachen in Germany. So my master's degree has a combination of both Italy and Germany. Then before coming to Italy, I have worked as a structural engineer back in India for almost 1.5 years. And then I came here. Now from February 2024, if I remember well, I started working as a structural engineer here in Milan. And I continue to work as a structural engineer.
What really piqued my interest when I got in touch with you is about you studying your master's degree in civil engineering. Because what I know as a matter of fact is that many people from India only think that opportunities abroad means only in the technical field, IT, software development, electronics engineering. So, this is what I hear a lot of people wanting to go abroad to study. And in the last years and months, I get a lot of questions from students or people who are in the field of civil engineering and wanting to explore the opportunities in Europe and in abroad. So to be honest, I'm not the expert in that field. And that's when was like, okay, yeah, like Asna Mishra. So she's from India, has studied in Italy and Germany in the field of civil engineering. So wow, it could be that when we have this conversation and dig deeper into the topics, it could be that many people who are asking this question themselves and to many others can get some value out of it. So that's why I'm super keen to know from you, like, why you chose Italy, so there are many other countries as well. So why you chose Italy to do your master's degree? So what was your experience? Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, so like almost all the Indian students, I would say I also applied to a few universities abroad, and there was a selection process, shortlisting of the universities and everything. But my major condition was that I did not want to overburden my parents. I wanted to be financially, like, there shouldn't be any like ropes attached to the fact that I have to take a loan or I don't have a scholarship or something like that. So then I was shortlisting universities. I applied to 4 universities mainly. The two were in Singapore, one was Delft and one was Politecnico di Milano. It was just after the COVID season, so mainly most of the universities, because the economies were hit hard, were not giving that much of scholarship. But Politecnico di Milano still had a scholarship that was there. So that was one of the major reasons why I decided to pursue my master's from Politecnico di Milano.
Super interesting. So this point that you mentioned about not to burden my parents. So to be honest, this was on one of my main criteria to choose Germany, because in
Mhm.
comparison with other countries like the US, so the fees are so high. such
Yeah.
that you will end up paying 40, 50 lakhs by the end of your studies, which is quite a lot. And the second criteria that I had in my mind is to also explore different cultures, so people
Mhm.
from different ethnicity and different culture. And what I got to know from many of my seniors who have been to the US is that if you study a master's program in the US,
Mhm.
80% of your like the classmates are from India. The main idea for me to go to abroad is to learn different cultures, get to know people from different parts of the world. And then if I'm studying with the students where majority are Indians, then I question myself, okay, is it really that's what I want? So when I boiled down my criteria to these two main points, then I thought, okay, maybe Germany is the right country because I have my engineering background in mechanical engineering plus industries. As everyone know, Germany is the place. So that's why I ended up in Germany as well. So I think compared to the US, I think Europe universities are some kind of is where the fees are not so high, right? So that's what many people
Today,
know it. But yeah,
there are universities in the US or UK which have a lot of name in India. I mean, I don't want to mention any university particularly, but they're very famous and people like to go to those universities because they are like brand names, I would say like that. But there are the universities in Germany or Italy, for example, TU Munich or Politecnico di Milano, which have a very strong background. I mean, in research, or you can say, even if you see the QS ranking, they are better than those US universities. So at the end of the day, you have a proof that why would you study and when you can get the same level of education somewhere and better exposure. And also, this is a really valid point. If you go to UK or US, you have a lot of Indians or people from India. I mean, but when I have studied in Politecnico, I had a lot of Italians be my classmates. So that gives me an exposure of what their culture is. So it's not only that if you're coming for masters, you come here just for your education, you learn structural engineering and you go back home. No, it's also about the interaction with the people from different places. Also, the same happened with me in RWTH Aachen, that there were people, Germans, there were people from South America, there were people from other European countries. So it's always a blend, good blend, and you tend to learn much more. Also, professionally and personally, both.
yeah, very true. Same here, like in Germany, when let's see what the future brings. That I'm not going to talk because now the Indians are also exploring a lot in the European countries, right? So
Yes.
it could be that we might end up in a place where the US is currently. I don't know, but still, it won't be that a case because also the European countries want people from different parts of the world, so it
Yes.
won't be skewed for only one particular country, is what I still feel.
Yes.
Um, that's very true. So, for the people who want to consider like their education at the Italian university, let's say like the university where you studied, what are the costs that they should keep in mind, Asna? So, what I know is about Germany, So, for example, in Germany, you should have a blocked account, right, to showcase
Mhm.
that you can. Plus, if you are choosing a public university, then the fees is very minimal, So, I think even less than 1 lakh rupees per semester. It depends for sure. But if you go with the private universities, it costs a bit, But how is it in Italy, Asna? Like at least the university which you studied?
So basically, it's a bit different. As you mentioned in Germany, I'm aware that you have a blocked account and you need to submit. Like my decision of actually not choosing Germany at the time and go for an exchange was this, that I couldn't maybe put that much money in the blocked account to block that money for the entire year or something like that. So in Italy, you don't need a blocked account actually. In Italy, I would say there is a scholarship and it has different names depending upon the university region. So you tend to get that scholarship, and that scholarship covers some of your, to some extent. So if you are a part of that, if you get that scholarship, you don't have to pay any tuition fees. So you're not paying any tuition fees. Of course, there is a basic enrollment fees that you have to pay and is not too much. If I remember when it was 20 euros or something like that, I don't remember very well. So you cut down on those additional costs of university or any tuition fees or something like that already. Plus, this scholarship also gives you some amount. Like when I was studying, if you get the dormitory room or something like that, they don't give you the accommodation amount. Otherwise, you get around 220 euros for your accommodation and some amount for your food. So we used to have like a Mensa coupon, it's called like that in Italy, for 5 euros every day. So I think it's a very good kind of scholarship for people who do not want to really burden. They need like a couple of months. So this scholarship tends to be like a bane for those case scenarios. And of course, it was my case. So that's why it really helped me to get this scholarship. And then eventually it buys you some time to get your part times and figure out your life in Europe.
So I think if someone wants to get a scholarship, then they have to qualify, right? So there might be some criterias that needs to be fulfilled in order for someone to get a scholarship. Or am I wrong about that?
No, it's not a merit based scholarship. So there are, of course, merit based scholarships that you can apply and you can do. But this is more like I would call it as a financial based scholarship, which is given by the Italian government. So it's more like that. And if you show that you have, like, you fall in a certain category of financials, you can get this scholarship. And of course, it's not very difficult to get it. It's just to be aware about the procedures and the correct documentation that you need to present it to the university.
So, for example, like when it comes to the universities in Germany, and if someone wants to know which kind of course is being offered in a particular university, this website is called daad.d is the
Mhm.
website for Germany. Get all the info. What's the procedure in order to get admit in the university? Like what are the documents that you have to provide? What's the cost? Is there any of the resources that you are aware of which can be helpful for someone who is watching this video, Ashna,
To
on
be
Italian
honest,
universities?
I know about that, and there is no particular centralized thing that is particularly done for Italy. So I would say you have to go to the particular website. Like, as far as I'm aware, I mean, I'm not aware of like a particular resource that can help me. Okay, this is a university, this is the coursework, and something like that. But I mean, I had to do it individually for the universities, to be sure.
Okay. So this means that you looked out for the universities and then checked out, okay, if this university is offering me structural engineering or any of the course that you are interested in, then you
Yes,
dig deeper and understood the whole process and you did everything on your own, right?
yes, yes.
So this means that also many people or like many students who want to do the master's degree or study abroad might also be thinking, okay, can I do it everything myself? So you are the prime example where you did everything yourself and then you are in Italy, did your master's and then currently working, right? So guys, if you are asking this question, so it is possible and you have an example here, so that's something that you need to keep. It is, I'm quite sure that it is quite a work, so I think you have to be patient, you have to research a lot, and it won't be easy, I guess. I'm 100% sure that you have taken months together of your time, Asna, to really make this thing happen. So that's what I can say, but you can also share that experience.
Also, I would say now you have ChatGPT or the other AI resources that can really help you out to pull out information. But back in 2020, when I was doing my research, you did not have like a compiled AI resource that famous that can, okay, you just go type a prompt and get all the information. Of course, all these GPTs also only work if you give like a proper prompt to them and you should know how to extract information from them. But in any case, it's still a very, very helpful tool. But yes, that's true that I shortlisted the universities by myself. I dig deep into the coursework. And but this was also one of the ways to understand how the universities are basically offering the coursework and how rigorous can be the coursework. So you are well prepared in your head what you are putting yourself into. So if I don't know like what is the detailed research about the coursework or something like that. So I mean probably I might feel overwhelmed once I land here that, okay, I did not expect something like this in my coursework or something like that. But yeah, I mean, that's my experience. And I think it takes a toll of your time. And it's always good to put in and to be sure where are you going and what are you looking forward.
So, Ashna, coming into the course and the comparison between the education systems and the difficulty level between, let's say, India, Italy, and Germany. So, this is something that I would like to dig deeper a bit. So, how hard or easy was it when you were doing the master studies in Italy at the university that you studied, which is Politecnico Milano, right? So, like in comparison, you did your bachelor's degree in VIT. So, Vellore Institute of Technology is also one of the very famous institutes or the universities from India.
Mhm.
So, and I can also imagine that it was not so easy there. But in
Mhm.
comparison to that, so how was the education here in Italy?
So, to be honest, I felt that there is a very huge difference between the education system in India and back here in Europe. So, it's not about which one is better or which one is more rigorous or something like that. It's the style that every country adopts, and it's the way that every like people from a particular nationality functions. I feel like this. So, to be honest, in my opinion, polygamy is known for this. Like people here around in Milan or students from polygamy are always joking around that getting into polygamy might be easier, but getting out of polygamy is much more harder. Italians, to be honest, have their own way of doing things. So back in India, you had certain textbooks, you had lecture notes, and we used to somehow study that part, and you used to go to the books, and it was manageable. But when I came here, I remember in my first semester, it was like they have terminologies for everything. It gave me a lot of experience, it gave me a lot of knowledge, but it was very overwhelming in the start. And you somehow tend to think, okay, am I lacking behind? Did I not study something in my bachelor's? Or what happened? For me, the first semester, of course, it took some time to understand, okay, this is the way they function. This is the way the Italians want things to be. And this is the way the professor expects something out of you. So, like in a Viva exam, like you call it Viva in India, you expect the professor to ask you questions and you answer those questions or something like that. But the professor will never ask you like a full derivation during your Viva or your oral exam. But I remember we have like proper 10 credits course, and you go to the professor, sit next to the professor, and the professor can ask you like maybe 2 derivations out of say 50 derivations, and you have to write the derivation exactly to the point. If you make a mistake, then the professor might like, okay, you are not so well prepared. You can come next time for your exam. So it took some time to get used to how the oral exams are and how the professor expects the homework to be. So it's not like in India, you have a certain date of your exams. You go write the exam, you pass your exam or you fail your exam. Here, you might get certain instances that you write your exam, but you're not happy with your own grade, you can reject the grade. And if the professor is not happy with your preparation, he can ask you to come back and not give you any mark for that particular, I would say, session that you take the exam. The next is when I went to RWTH Aachen. So it was another set of learning because Germany operates in a bit different manner in comparison to Italy. But because I was an Erasmus student, I have also written an oral exam there because I had a certain deadline to come back to my home university and stuff like that. So the professor accepted to write the exam like oral instead of written. But the professor was really, really polite. I mean, it was like, I felt like the professor in Germany was more like my professor back in bachelor's because they were more accommodating. They were more like, okay, it's an oral exam. I understand. You shouldn't be under pressure or something like that. And I wrote my exam, and I remember when I came out of my exam, I had like a couple of colleagues waiting. And how was your oral? Because you wrote an oral exam directly with the professor. Yeah, it was with the professor. It's just an experience. Different universities having different sets of standards. But I would say like the curriculum in Polymy is very rigorous because I remember for a particular 6 credit course, for example, in RWTH, we had lesser number of hours dedicated than in Polymy. I mean, I cannot say yes or no because I mean, RWTH is also a very, very renowned university in Germany and they're doing great. So it's just the way the university functions in India or in Germany or in Italy. But you have to be prepared and you have to keep the mindset open. That's it.
I think you really painted a picture for someone who might be interested in knowing a bit about the differences between the education system in India, in Italy, and in Germany. That's really cool. So, like, just to change a bit, but still staying in the same topic, like, how was your initial days and months in Italy, Ashna? So, like, I know, of course, in Germany, how it would be, but how was your initial days in Italy? So, were you having like a lot of challenges and you had to overcome them, or what was your experience?
So, of course, I mean, as a student, when I am in Milan, it's an excitement because you did everything and now you're finally here. I mean, my visa process was also a bit hassle for me. So, actually, I arrived 2 months late to Italy than when my master's started. So, of course, it was a mixture of excitement as well as overwhelming that I have to catch up with the 2 months of lectures and everything. But the major challenge that you face once you land, I think almost in all the European countries is the same is the language barrier that you face. So what happens is even though my course was in English, but the daily life operated in Italian. And I would say I wasn't prepared for it because I did not learn any Italian before coming to. So the point is like if anybody actually plans, this would be my first suggestion that before you actually get overwhelmed and start applying for universities, please, once you have the admit and you decide to come to a certain country, learn the language, at least to an A2 level, where you are already responsible enough to do basic daily conversation. Because I remember I knew nothing. And if you go to the supermarket, you struggle with the ingredients, you always have to take the Google Translator with yourself. Okay, prepare better. Then I would say once you land in here, you have a lot of bureaucracy stuff that you have to take into for the residence permit. It's always a trade off that you have to attend your lectures. So you're always running, I think, for the first few months. You have to search for part times. You have to search for the bureaucracy. I mean, you have to figure out your bureaucracy. You need your residence permit documents to be made. You have to attend your lectures. You have to go get your transportation card. You have to get your SIM card or whatever. So, yeah, it's always like this. And on the top of it is if you do not get the dormitory, so is another hassle to find like an apartment or a place where you can live. And the point is, so it's like all the Facebook groups or something like that are full of scams. To how to avoid those scams, how to. So it's a mixture of all of these things.
Yeah, very true. I mean, with all the points that you mentioned, what the additional points that I would like to add on is that you have to take care of your grocery shopping, you have to take care of your cooking
Yes,
when you
we
are in the
cannot
new country, right?
we cannot forget the health insurance.
So, yeah, I mean, the bureaucracy with the all. So, when I talk about this bureaucracy topic, yes, of course, there are topics and the steps which can be simplified, I feel, but still, because of all these things that are in place in Europe, that's why the systems work far better than in our home countries. Also, the other way, how I think, so when it comes to the health insurance, when it comes to the public transportation, all of it is so organized and so well functioning And this happens because, yeah, I mean, there is a structure for it, right? Like everything everyone has to do, they have to follow a certain structure. And that's when the whole system works without any hassle, is how I feel.
Yes, I mean, I agree that eventually you do find your own rhythm. You do know what to prioritize. You do know, well, I mean, you get into a routine and then you can figure out everything and you start enjoying the experience. But I wouldn't say that you land here and expect that your life will be merry and your life will be like, okay, I can already start enjoying it because I am in Europe now. It doesn't work like that.
I think also setting up, having the right expectation is very important, right?
Exactly.
You really said a very, very important point, because it could be that many people think, okay, as soon as I reach Europe, as soon as I reach the destination country, my life will be set. No, that's the beginning of everything, is what I say
Exactly.
to many people. Everything starts from there, and you need easily 3 to 4 years to get settled, like finish your studies, also find your job and set your rhythm,
Yeah.
what the time. But for me personally, that time is the best time invest. So yes, it takes time, but still it's the really at the end of 2 years, 3 years, you realize that, okay, wow, it was all hard, but I'm happy now. So it was all worth it, is how I at least felt after my struggles. So how was your situation there?
I've been in Europe now for 4 years, but I would say it taught me. I mean, okay, India teaches you, but you still have a lot of comfort. You don't have to go for your grocery. You have Blinkit, Zomato, Swiggy, everything already functioning now at your doorstep in India. And okay, it's good if you prefer a life like that. Okay, be happy, but Europe teaches you how to live. I would say this. I mean, learned this, of course. That's what it's like. You learn how to push your limits and you keep learning how to push your limits till the time it comes, okay, now I already know what else can come up. I am ready to face the challenges in my life. I would say so.
Yeah. So when you move to Europe, or when you move to abroad for that matter, you learn what life is. So that's
Exactly.
what you can get out of it. And this is like a life lesson, right? So this is like an life opportunity where you get to learn about yourself, because you also spend a lot of alone time, right?
Yeah.
Get to explore yourself, what you are, what you want in life. And this, I feel, is a very important thing. Yes, it will be hard in the beginning, but as you start getting used to it, then you actually feel that, okay, this was a really important thing for me to know. Because when I compare myself with a friend of mine who has never traveled abroad, I see the difference. What are my priorities? What are their priorities? What I value, what they value. I'm not saying what's correct, what's wrong. So that's not at all the intention, but I feel that there is a difference. So I
Mhm.
think moving abroad will really teach us you all these life lessons, which will be with you all over your life. This is
Yeah,
what I feel.
true.
I So when it comes to the housing situation, Ashna, so in Germany it's catastrophic. So it's very hard to find your even apartment. So when you are at the university and when there is an availability for the dormitory or the university hostel, then it's a different story. Of course, it's fine. But if that's not the case, then it's very hard. But how is it in Italy, Ashna? Like, especially in Milan, where you studied. So, what's the situation there? How is this housing situation for basically the international students?
I mean, as you said, it is catastrophic. And the point is, if you get the university residence, very good. And it's actually the best option you can get because it's also affordable and better. But apart from that, there are like the prices are soaring to some next level. So, because Milan is like, I would say, it's like Berlin or Munich in Germany. But the problem with the housing is actually like the prices are high. There is a lot of scarcity to find the house. You might have to pay a lot for the utilities because of which you cannot afford the house. You might have to pay a lot for the agency fees, which because of which you cannot afford the house. There are situations where you see the rent and you're like, okay, this is the rent, but that is just the base rent. And there are additional costs to it. Moreover, I would say that there are a lot of scams. Like there are certain groups in Facebook or somewhere where you only see scams. So you have to be careful, like how to avoid circumstances where you don't lose your money. And there were situations where they were like, I don't live in a particular city, but I live in another country of Europe. So these are my documentation. You can probably send me the deposit so that I can already start preparing your contract or something like that. But I would say 90% of the time, it's all scam.
There will be a lot of scams that one need to be aware of when it comes to finding the apartment in Milan. So I also see this quite becoming quite common in Germany as well, at least in the university cities, so where there are a lot of universities, there is a lot of scams that is going on. But yeah, so that's why I think it's very important for someone coming from abroad to be very careful about it, and then double check on if at all whatever the information that they are getting is right. Maybe visiting that place first, so sometimes they say, okay, just transfer me 1,000 euros and I will send you the keys. So these are all scams, so
Yes,
unless and
exactly.
until you go and see the apartment, check out the owner, you should never transfer the money. I think that's the rule of thumb that one should follow.
Yeah, correct.
So you said you talked about a bit about the language, right? So learning language is very important, right? So that like on a day-to-day basis, it's important for someone to like navigate their life in abroad, right? So apart from you like taking care of, I don't know, speaking in the supermarket or when you're buying stuff, do you also see like learning Italian is very important to also get the job in Italy? How was your experience there?
So I would first tell, did I learn the job? Yes. Did I learn the language? Yes, I ended up learning the language up to the A2 level because, as mentioned, it's required for the day-to-day tasks to navigate your life, as you said, in Europe. But is it important to get a job? It really depends on the field. But if you talk about civil engineering, I would say yes. I mean, it's not the prime thing that you should know to get into a company. But when it comes down to civil engineering, you have drawings, you have a lot of things that are in Italian. So, to share you with an example, when I first started working, the first drawing that was handed over to me was completely in Italian. Second point is, if you are really interested in going to the site and being a site engineer, of course, you need to learn the language. So, like depending of course if you are an IT person or something, you can manage, or from management or finance or something like that, there will be a lot of international people working and there will be a lot of global companies where you can manage in English. But being a civil engineer and being in civil engineering, it's like, I would say you should be able to have at least conversational skills. If you have like a technical
Nice,
terminology,
yeah.
you can work and you can learn and work. But if you don't know anything about the language, it becomes even more difficult to learn the technical terminology.
So do you have any recommendations for someone from India to learn Italian language in India? So because for example, to learn German, I always recommend people to join Goethe Institute. That's
Yes.
the well-known institute where one can learn really good German. So is there any recommendation from your side to where to go and learn the language?
I did not learn from any institute in India, so I cannot really recommend, because probably you can recommend Goethe or any other institute because you had your own first-hand experience with that. So what I did was, once I came here, there are community schools in Milan, which is called as Community Milano, and they run programs where you can go like attend the Italian classes. It's for the people who do not know Italian at all, and it's from the most basic level to the most advanced level. And the best part is that it is free of cost. You don't have to pay. All you have to do is that you should have that will, and you should have those hours, of course, that you want to go and learn the particular language. So I did this during my second semester. I enrolled in this school near my house. And I used to go for like 3 days a week for 3 hours, or you can also go 2 days a week, 4 hours, depending upon your schedule. And that's how I managed to learn. I mean, the language, but I mean, that was the best resource once, if you don't do any preparation back in India, that's the best resource once you land here. I would say so.
Thanks for sharing your personal experience. So it's really great for someone to know that there is opportunity for them to also learn after they come to Italy, right? Maybe while studying their master's degree and then learning, so that like they, by the time they finish their master's degree, they will reach to a level where they can actually function in the society, right? Great
Yeah.
thing. So with this job, like this Italian language as a barrier, you mentioned that for some jobs it is not necessary, some jobs it is necessary. I think it's the same in Germany as well, I would say. When it comes to, let's say, then the English speaking jobs in Italy, Ashna, so how is the situation there? So, and maybe let's specifically stick to the civil engineering background, so where you come from. So, how are the English speaking jobs for the civil engineers who are willing to move to Italy?
So the point is the youth of Italy speaks English. But if you expect the people above like 40 to speak English, they do not. I have colleagues who do not speak English at all, and they find like it's very difficult for them to communicate in English. And after a point, they cannot explain me anything in English and they need to switch to Italian. So it's kind of like civil engineering. I think if you want to function in Italy, and especially if there is a company who has projects only in Italy, then it's a must to know the language. Because there are a lot of small and medium scale firms, civil engineering in Italy, which do a lot of projects in Italy itself rather than globalizing and something like that. So if you have global projects, you can expect some level of English, functional English and stuff like that within the office. But if it's a small firm doing projects only in Italy, then you can expect a lot of Italian.
So, this means that knowing Italian really broadens your availability of job for you, right? So if you
Yes.
are only sticking with English, then the amount of jobs that might be available for you to apply is very limited. Could be,
Yeah.
that's how you say it. Yeah. I
I
think
would
this
say
this
I would say this is how civil engineering functions.
Yeah, I would say like this holds true for every non IT field, So, like with every non software development field that one is having, I think it's true for all European wide, because for example, like you also said in Germany, with this, when you are a software developer, then you can expect English speaking jobs. But still, if you know German, then the options that you have is immense, So there is so many small companies who are needing the developers and have the development team. And if the whole team is above 45 years old, then they don't usually speak English, So you have to speak in the local language. And that's why just knowing the local language just increases your chances of getting job and you getting the opportunity, it feels like to me.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like the steps and the challenges to getting your first job in Italy as a civil engineer. So, what was your strategy, Asna? Like, what was your job search strategies? How did the interviews go? Like, how does the visa sponsorship works? Can you please explain about that?
Unlike Germany, I would like to mention this that in Germany, once you land, you tend to find a working student job or internship or something like that, and you tend to do something like this. So you are already working as a master's student in Germany, which I think is a very, very good thing about Germany, but is completely contrasting for Italy. Because I felt like when you are studying in Italy and when your coursework becomes this rigorous, you generally do not have that much time. Or people here, when they want to hire you, do not consider that you are skilled enough, basically. to have or to work. So it's not a like a general thing. Of course, there are people who work. So what to talk about my personal experience when I was in my last semester, like just finishing up my thesis and stuff like that, I started preparing up for my, I made sure about the language that I mentioned. That was job, like point one, to prepare for the job. The second point was to create my CV as per a bit, like every country has their own standards, I would say. So, like there are CVs which would be more apt for the German market, and there would be CV which would be apt more for the Italian market. So, just talking around understanding how and what recruiters in Italy are doing. And then I did this step for myself that being a structural engineer is not very much required, but to make my recruiter understand what kind of projects I have already worked on. As a civil engineer and as a structural engineer, I still did make a portfolio of mine, like architects do. Like portfolio is always expected from architects, but from structural engineer or civil engineer, they never expect a portfolio. But what I saw as a difference was when people used to my portfolio. This also happened with me when I did my first switch this June 2025. Like after working for 1.5 years for a firm, I made a switch. This is the extent of the project that I have worked on, and these are my particular roles and responsibilities that I have worked on. It gave me a bit of an edge over the other candidates. Why? Because the recruiter started understanding what is my scope and what all I have I done. The second reason why I made for my portfolio was that you cannot put everything into the CV. You cannot make your CV more than 1.5 page. And if you do so, you are already making the recruiter so overwhelmed by your CV that probably he wouldn't want to look at your CV anymore because they have like few seconds of your time to look into the CV. So this is all what I did in order to prepare for like getting a job in the Italian market. Moreover, when I was applying, I started making a strong network on LinkedIn because LinkedIn really helped me out. I mean, I made sure that I start becoming active on LinkedIn and start reaching out to people on LinkedIn, asking them about the opportunities that they have. I mean, it may sound weird, but there is that thing shy in asking a recruiter or somebody, a colleague, okay, can you please refer me? Do you have any vacancy or something like that? Because I would say this is how I cracked my second job. I mean, there was probably no opening in the company. But because I knew a person working in the company, I reached out to him if your company is looking for some structural engineer. I forwarded my CV, I forwarded my portfolio, and then he sent it to the HR, and she managed to send to the recruiters, and they said, okay, we can call her for the interview. So I would say it's all about little steps that you take towards getting the job. I would say it's like for me, all these things helped me to crack my job, like my first job, even before graduating. So I had not graduated by then. Whereas I see people here who need at least 5 to 6 months after graduating also finding a proper job. I would say if you get a job, take the first job. It doesn't matter, it will teach you a lot. And then you can eventually figure out if this is the thing what you want or not. Because once you get into the matrix, it becomes easier. But if you are very choosy about getting into the matrix, I don't know. I mean, I don't recommend it personally.
So, what I always say to people or recommend to people is that you have to stand out in the job market. So, if you are always sending the same CV, same cover letter to 100 jobs, then you will get 100 rejections. So, think in the direction of why the company should hire you than in the direction of I applied and now the company has to will not get you a job. Always try to understand what is the problem that a company or a department or a person who is working in that company is really working on, where you as a person can solve that problem, and showcase that, okay, these are my skill set, these are the things that I already did to my previous company, and I see that here is the problem that you as a company or a department is facing, and if we work together, then there is a possibility that there is a good match. So always making sure that how you as a person can create a value in the company is how you stand out, right? So this is exactly what I heard from you when you are sharing this all your story. So you were not thinking the direction that, okay, I am graduating from Politecnico Milan and someone has to give me a job, but you are thinking the direction of how can you as a person add value to a company, right? So and then when you have this mindset, then you start become creative, right? So okay, how can I do that? Okay, maybe portfolio is the right thing, let me create that. Yes, it's not standard in the industry, but I'll anyways create this so that people get to know what I've done. So this change in mindset is very important, and this is the one major point that I see as a difference between someone who made it abroad and someone who went back to their home country because they could not find a job. So many people complain saying that, okay, I was in Germany, I searched for 2 years, but I did not get the job, but you did not stand out. It could be that they did this repetitive thing, just one CV cover letter and then send out to 100 companies. No, you won't get job that way. So you have to put your efforts, you have to stand out in the crowd, and then only you will get the job, is my recommendation to everyone as well.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, of course, goes through rejections. It's a part of
Sure.
the recruiting process. But
100%.
that's what I said. It's just about that one job that you get. And then you know much more about how to fight the matrix of that particular country and keep going on and on. Because then,
Nice.
by then, you already have a lot of colleagues working around in the field and you already know people from the university or professors already working. So you already expanded your network so much that you can at least ask for a referral for the next job. That's it.
So you spoke about how you got your first job. So now I think you have somewhere between 1.5 to 2 years of job experience working in Italy, right? So
Yeah.
what are the work cultural differences that you see between India, Italy, Germany when it comes to the number of hours, workplace etiquette, hierarchy, expectations? What are your experience there, Asna?
To be honest, when it comes down to the work culture, I would say I felt like it's more balanced here. If there is a deadline, I agree I have to work and push harder so that I can achieve those deadlines and help the company to meet the goals. But otherwise, if there is no like a hard and fast deadline, you can work for 40 hours a week, 5 days a week. And on Saturdays and Sundays, generally, they don't expect you to work. On the other hand, in Italy, there are different types of contract that you can work on. So, for example, I opted for something which gives me much more flexibility, which means that if I am working for over hours, they are paid. But if I am working for under hours, okay, they don't pay me for those hours. So, this gives me much more flexibility that, okay, if I have other things to take up this week, I can work for some days 10 hours, but on the other days, maybe 6 hours. So on an average, you still work for 8.5 hours, but you decide is not like fixed that you have to be in the office around 9 and leave the office by 6:30. So I like exploring things, going for other collaborations or something like that. So I like this flexibility. And this is what I would say is one of the biggest difference that I had in terms of the job that I did in India, whereas the job that I am doing now in Italy.
So, what I'm curious to know is, what were your biggest surprises where you expected something, but the reality about the workplace and the work that you got as a first job in Italy was different? So, were there any big surprises along this way?
Rather than big surprises, like when you start a new phase of your life, whether it was doing masters in Italy or whether it was starting my first job in Italy, initially the first 2 months or the 3 months become very overwhelming because as somebody who did my master's here, how am I supposed to apply my theoretical knowledge to the practical field was a challenge. So I think it's always that you have to give yourself time for those initial months, push yourself and understand how the industry works or the university works. And then it becomes easier. Like my second job and adjusting to the kind of work they do was way easier for me than for my first job because I knew how things function already now.
Now I'm quite interested to know about your personal journey and like the advice kind of topics. The whole conversation that you had, you were sharing your personal journey, but now I would like to turn the gears and then make it such a way that you can advise to someone who wanting to follow your path, so is looking forward to follow your path maybe. So, what are your personal tips for overcoming this cultural shock that you mentioned, making friends in Italy, So, I think this is also one of the major points that is I felt when I came to Germany, it was not the same way how I made friends in India, so it's different. So, what are your personal tips on those topics, Ashna?
The point is, of course, language is the key. I think even you would have felt like if you know the language, you could have inculcated with Germans, making them as your friend much more easier in comparison to when you spoke to them in English. I wouldn't say like Italians as people are very cold, they are warm. But of course, everybody loves their own culture, everybody loves their own language. So if you want to make friends here, if you want to interact more with Italians, I would say like the best thing is that you have to know the language. The other part is how to. Milan is pretty international. I wouldn't say that there are only Italians living here, so it's pretty international. Generally, for Milan, if you are a person who's very social, you have a lot of events going on, you can socialize and get to know people, make friends as you prefer. And now, as I have seen in the past 4 years, there is a quite lot of Indians also coming to Italy. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that there is a lack of Indian community anymore in Milan. So you can also find, if you want to be specific about finding friends who are Indians, I think it's not a problem anymore. Why I can only say generically, because I am not a person who's too social. So I don't know particularly too much about making friends or something like that.
So, do you have any suggestion for someone who's looking to build like a rewarding expat life in Italy? So, what are your thoughts on that?
As in what regards, like in what particular aspect?
So, you said that you are not someone who is more on a social person, right? So, it's same for me as well. By the way, like if I have one good friend, I'm set for life. So that's why someone who is like craving for tens of like connections or friends. But let's say if they want to, yeah, like apart from like finding people and friends, so what other activities that one can do, maybe particularly in Milan, so what you do maybe, which makes you feel like, wow, okay, this expat life is quite nice.
No, it's always like for me, if I have time and I love traveling. So there are a lot of places that you can go around near Milan in order to explore. There are multiple workshops. There are, like, if you are, for example, a student from fashion, you would like the Design Milan week that happens, and it happens on a very huge scale. People from all across the world just come and see it. So there are events all the time happening in Milan. If you like traveling, there are a lot of places to go around near Milan. Like 1 hour from Milan, you will reach Lake Como, Lake Lecco, or something like that. So it's always very interesting. So the life in Milan is not actually very boring. It's just what you want to do. I like traveling. So most of my time, whenever I have some time, it's mostly I go around exploring different places, either in Milan or anywhere in Europe.
Nice, that's perfect. I think the one main advantage of living in Europe is that you have the possibility to travel in the 26 Schengen countries, right? So this
Yes.
is amazing. And also, you don't have to have crazy big budgets as well, So there are so many flex bus, for example, it travels throughout Europe, So, and
Yes.
then, so I think Europe is very well connected when it comes to the transportation system. Plus, also, you don't need big budgets to travel and explore Europe. So that's also one of the main advantage of living in Europe, it feels like to me.
If you're
Yeah.
somebody who likes exploring, as you said, like different cultures, you can explore different cultures like going. Because here, if you are in Germany or you're in Italy or you're in Spain, it's completely different. People are completely
Mhm.
different, their food is completely different. So you can have like a very good first hand experience of all these things.
So, what is the most memorable challenge and the proudest achievement that you think that you had so far in your life in Italy, Asna?
I think as an expat, if you have a stable life after 3 to 4 years, is a particular achievement in yourself because you have been through a lot. In particular, I mean, why I am saying so, because people would think, what is the big deal? I mean, there are so many expats, but why do you think so? Because I remember there are, I mean, we have mentioned about all the overwhelming things, but there is also one thing, I don't know if I should bring this up or not, but you feel
No, please share.
overwhelmed about. I remember when I was changing countries, and I changed countries from Italy, like first India to Italy, then Italy to Germany. So after I landed in Germany, 3 days later, I remember my wallet was stolen. So and when my wallet was stolen, I lost all my bank cards. I lost all my residence permit that I had. So 3 days being into Germany, of course, I didn't have any permit for Germany, but I had the permit for Italy. It was gone. I think this is one of the most memorable things that have happened to me because it taught me so much about being patient. And I would like to mention this, that trusting God that everything will fall into place. Just be calm.
Mm.
And that's what I would say. With all the situations you face, it will fall into place. It's just a phase of time. That's it.
So I went to Spain at tour, like I was visiting Barcelona, and there I lost my passport, So this was so much of an experience. At the moment, I felt, wow, okay, the world is falling apart, But
Yeah.
like you said, being patient, trying to figure out, okay, what are the next steps? I mean, it's not that you are the first person who is actually losing a wallet or a passport, right? So there are processes in place, there are steps in place, but you need to calm yourself and then just figure things out, So I think with this mindset, and also this mindset is what teaches when you are in abroad, you have to do that, like there is no other option. You are all by yourself, you
Yeah.
just have friends, and it forces you to become someone who is more calm, more patient, and that's again one of the advantages of moving abroad, I would say.
Yeah.
Ashna, so the one last question that I would like to ask you is the following. I know that everyone's life situation will change within no time, and at this point of recording, you can share what are your thoughts and what are your plans. So, what are your future plans? Are you planning to stay longer in Italy or in abroad, or are you planning to leave?
So, to be honest, when I came to Europe, of course, everybody thinks I will be staying here for some years and everything. But I mean, as an individual, I always wanted to go back to India. And then maybe I would like to go back to India because I don't know about others, but for me, my sense of belongingness is in India. I don't feel that sense of belongingness in any country I have been to so far. And I encourage everyone, though, at least if they want to try, take these experiences because it pushes you out of your comfort zone. You make mistakes, you explore, but it all teaches you as well. And for me, it has made me more and more grateful about the opportunities that have come and the way those opportunities have come my way. I am more than grateful about everything. But at the end, I think I will go back to India because I think that's home for me and that's my country for me.
So the whole idea of moving abroad and exploring is to really learn about life and then understand who we are. Yeah, again, also learn our belonging, so where we actually fit in, so this is all the part of learning, I feel. And like you rightly said, once you are back to your home, you are a whole new person, a better person. I feel, so more
Yes.
thankful in person who tries to, I don't know, like, yeah, I don't know, respect everything and everything that come across or face across. So I think this is what makes moving abroad and getting this experience is what makes someone all these aspects, which is why I'm a great promoter of telling people to take this step if there is an opportunity for them to explore.
I mean, of course, at the end, it teaches you, it tests you, everything, but you become a better version of yourself. I would say this.
Nice, Ashna. So it was an amazing conversation that I had so far, I must say. Like, are there any closing words that you want to share to someone who has made until now to watch this video? Do you want to share something as a closing words? Please feel free to do so.
Just this, if you have second thoughts, don't have those thoughts. It's all worth it. Not now, but maybe in the coming years. That's it.
Perfect, Ashna. It was an immense pleasure to speak with you. Thank you once again for joining me today, and I wish you a great one.
Thank you for having me.